Welcome to another episode of the Carry Trainer Higher Line podcast. Welcome to another episode of the Higher Line podcast. I've got a very special guest. We're going to talk today about panic attacks, anxiety, and doing shit like jumping out of airplanes. I can't say I changed his diaper, but I watched it done a lot. My little brother, Tom.
What's going on, bro?
Hey.
How you doing?
So I and him have talked about doing this for years, actually. And you just started doing some videos on your YouTube channel, kind of sharing some stuff that we'll talk about. And it's, I think, fitting, and maybe we can dig in there. But for you guys watching or listening, depending on where you're at, we'll kind of start today from the present, I think, and work our way back. So who are you? Who's my brother?
My name's Tom Shook. Usually everybody calls me Tommy.
I don't, though. You always say that, but I don't call you that.
Yeah, Mickey's brother.
You're a lot more than my brother. So you and I used to work together a lot in the construction years, but you deployed, or went rather, to the Army. You left for the infantry, at 17 years old?
17 years old, yeah. Yep. Right out of military high school.
Yeah, I forgot about that, too. Mm-hmm. You came back, made a family. You got a son now that is, 15 this year?
He's turning 16 in a few weeks, yeah.
And you've done all kinds of stuff like construction, tower climbing. You learned to fly airplanes, speed wings, parachuting, all kinds of different stuff along that thread of outdoor sports. You did some base jumping. Mm-hmm.
A little bit.
You're a big fan of body painting.
Yep.
That's a joke. But ultimately, recently, which Drew can link the video, you did a video talking about painkillers and anxiety and how the two of them kind of came to be in your life. Like, I didn't even know you were doing that. One day I came up in my feed. I was like, what the hell's this? And you're like sitting in front of the camera, like spilling your guts. Talk about that.
Yeah, pretty much. I got to a point in my life where I realized that I was bearing a lot of my problems with drugs, alcohol, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And drugs, I mean painkillers. And
that were prescribed initially.
They were prescribed to me, yeah. And let's just say one of the reasons why I put that video out was because of how many people that I've known that have had problems with those, and how many people I've lost to mm-hmm. drug addictions. And I pretty much...
I don't know how many people, like if you started naming them, how many people and I don't want to do that, but how many guys we grew up with that are dead from either overdose, or they made themselves sick from like a life of boozing and partying, and then got bad choices and they died, or crashed a car or something. Like, it's got to be like 30 or 40 dudes.
Oh yeah, easily.
Which is insane, because we grew up in a pretty nice area with like nice schools and nice people, mm-hmm. which tells you something. Like I don't want to name names, but like one family that grew up right across the street from us. Like, what?
It's not always the demographic that defines a drug addict, I mm-hmm. guess. It could be anybody. Mm-hmm. White collar, blue collar, it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. So. And
then we knew a bunch of people like from our area growing up that committed suicide, not by drug ingestion, but like shot themselves, hung themselves. And mm-hmm. it's like, which I don't want to make the focus of our discussion, but I think like people hear that are like, damn, where the hell did you live? Like,
well, the first one was my close friend, Russ Washer.
Well, there you go. I just was talking about him with somebody the other day.
Not to drop a name there, but...
Yeah, I mean, Yeah, Russ was he 15?
He was almost 17.
Okay.
I was about 14.
He was our next door neighbor.
Yeah.
I just told the story of... That was kind of like a movie where like some young person kills themselves and nobody really knows him, but then everybody shows up from the high school to the funeral and they say they were his best friend.
Right.
Like, not
That's
a lot
always
of...
how that goes.
Yeah, he was like a kept to himself. And then I remember being at the funeral, and there's 1,000 kids from the high schools and stuff there.
Yeah.
And like, none of you people were friends with this guy.
Nobody know. Yeah.
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 But he shot himself in the head, which... was horrible.
Yeah.
But my point in bringing it up, like all these things, and that's just one set of things, led to something you and I've talked about ad nauseum in our life. I'm 5 years older than you. How many times we drive around in my truck going to a job site talking about panic attacks and anxiety?
Yeah, a lot. A lot.
Yeah, a lot. So we both, and I've talked about this in these episodes many times, we both have suffered from it. You in, I think, your second video, because you did 2 videos on it, in your second video you talked about, you kind of came to the conclusion only you could fix it.
Yep.
Talk about that a little bit.
So one of the things that I realized through many years of battling panic attacks and anxiety was that a lot of the times they started because of negative thought patterns and negative thought processes. And that, if you can change the way you think, you can change the way you feel, as they say.
It's true.
And like I said in that video that I made, I mean, these things completely controlled every aspect of my life. I still battle it to this day. I just have better tools to deal with it. And
what's that look like? So some people, like you and I, both could describe the symptoms, and they're different for everybody. Like, what people are like, well, what does that even mean?
So a panic attack, to me anyway, from my experience, is it's, first of all, it's a claustrophobic feeling. And once you start to feel that claustrophobic feeling and you start getting a shot of adrenaline, your heart starts to race, you start to feel like the whole world's closing in on you and you feel like you're about to die. I mean, it's pretty serious in your own head, especially when you don't know what you're feeling. A lot of things I've read about panic attacks say that nobody's ever died from a panic attack, but it sure feels like it when you're going through it.
Yeah, a lot of times you start to feel those physical symptoms that the adrenaline cortisol response creates, and you're like, am I having a heart attack? Am I having a freaking stroke?
Yeah.
Is there some like weird tumor in me that nobody knows about?
Your throat, it feels like your throat, somebody's squeezing your throat closed.
I'm having anaphylaxis.
Your chest is tightening. Yeah, you have all these things going on, but at the end of the day, you're the one creating them subconsciously by what you're thinking about.
I think you pointed something out in both those videos, which we probably should predicate this discussion on, is we're not doctors.
Right, exactly.
I play doctor a lot. Tom definitely plays doctor a lot, but
a little bit.
But we're not trying to give you medical advice. Like if you're having throat tightening and all that kind of stuff, go see a doctor.
Go get it checked out.
Figure out what's wrong with you. But if it is panic attacks, you and I and other people in our family, which because they're not here, I don't want to name them, but Karen's been on this podcast and we talked about it. It's almost like a good 20 years of my life was spent just figuring out how to cope with, work around, work through, deny, like depending on the attitude or the environment,
right.
Like come up with ways, all surrounded by this like monster in the back of your head. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, definitely.
What do you think? When's the first time you remember having a panic attack? I remember the exact day for me, like down to the minute.
The first time I had a panic attack was driving in a car with a couple of guys in my unit on Fort Hood.
So you were 17, 18?
Yeah, somewhere around that age. And we were, I'm not going to say exactly what we were doing. We were having a fun night. And I just remember pulling up to a stoplight on post and having this feeling of I need to get the hell out of this car. And I got out of the back seat and I just started walking down.
I remember you telling me that story.
Walking down the road, and like I said, I thought I was dying. You know, I didn't nothing. There was nothing apparent that was making me feel that way. It just came out of nowhere.
So you're hanging out with your buddies, listening to tunes, having fun, laughing, joking, and all of a sudden all of these physical symptoms.
All of a sudden I'm choking and I can't breathe, not because of anything or somebody did to me or the situation we were in, nothing to do with that, just out of nowhere. It just happened. So.
Yeah, for me, Karen and I were hanging out. And I remember that same similar situation. And then the next day it happened. And I began to fixate on it because I'm like, whatever this is, I don't want this to ever happen again. So then you start to like become hyper aware of like every little thing going on in your body.
You start to correlate different feelings with that same feeling, and then it brings on that, you know, the other day I was on a meeting for the union, the Tower Climbers Union, and I had a part in there where I had to speak for a few minutes, and coming up to my part where I had to talk, I started to get racing heart, you know, and I think that's just a normal nervous thing, you know, because I'm not comfortable, and I haven't been. I'm trying to get better at speaking in front of people. And like right now, we're doing it. But leading up into my time where I was going to talk, my heart started pounding pretty heavily, and I got really nervous. And I did my talk.
My internet connection screwed up, guys.
No, I fought through it, and I did it. And after the fact, you know, I was talking with my girlfriend later that day, and she just said, it's normal to be a little bit nervous. And I thought about that for a second, and I said, my mind was telling me I was having a panic attack, but the reality was I was just a little bit nervous about talking in front of, you know, 400 people.
Sure.
And that's what's crazy about panic attacks is you could have a shirt that's a little bit too tight, and then all of a sudden you feel, you know, you'll connect that tightness with your shirt to tightness in your chest, and now you can't breathe, and this turns into this whole
I got to get this shirt on.
Crazy way of thinking.
Running naked through the parking lot.
It's people that don't experience or have never experienced it, it's hard for them to really understand that. But you know, it's a real thing, man, and I think a lot of I think it needs to be brought more out in the public eye that it's a problem that people have, and that, you know, should be looked at a little bit more.
I like went down this deep dive of how do I stop this, which is how I became friends with guys like Brian McKenzie, the Art of Breath guy, or other people in fields like that. And then the other side is like, all right, what thought patterns or things have I been exposed to that created this overwhelming stress response in my body, which you and I could talk about some of that stuff, but, you know, like, that shit's hardwired in us from the time we were small people.
Yeah.
So, like, that's when somebody that's like never had that happen has it happen, and they can't correlate it to something, it's even scarier. Like now as an adult, I can sit and look and say, okay, all of these other things happened in my life throughout 30 plus years of living, and my body said, I don't like this shit, so I'm going to make you get really freaking fast and strong to run away or fight whatever this thing is. Except now being on a meeting, your body says, you're going to have to fight these.
Yep.
And it does the same thing. It doesn't know the difference.
Yeah, see, but at the end of the day, I don't think you can ever just get rid of them by changing your thought process or doing anything. I think that you can only just get better in the way that you manage your thoughts and manage those feelings.
I agree.
Know? So I think it's kind of a lifelong deal.
So you and I, well, that's why some people, like, and we know some people that have had that happen. They go to the doc and they say the same thing you just did. I had this experience. It sucks. And the doc goes, yeah, okay, here's some Xanax or yeah, this. And then they go, like, I've never taken one of those, which doesn't, I'm not like saying I'm better because I haven't. I was scared to, because I thought if this works, then I'm going to need to have this thing. And it wasn't even to do with drugs. It was like, I want to figure out what's going on. I don't want to swallow a pill.
Right. Like you said, we're not doctors and we're not giving medical advice here, but I think the medical community is just hyper obsessed with just giving out a pill.
Yeah.
And that's it. Let's not look at other ways to manage it. Let's just give you drugs, and then next thing you know, you're dependent on those drugs, and you might be out of town on a trip and you don't have them. Now what? Mm-hmm. Now you're freaking out because you don't have your medication. Like that's not a long-term, you know, fix. That's not going to be anything that's going to actually help anybody. I don't think long-term. I think in certain situations that stuff is that stuff could be very helpful.
It's like a tourniquet or a pressure dressing.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
When you're, there's situations in life people go through that are mentally traumatizing to the point where they have a stroke, they can't breathe, they can't function. The death of a child, witnessing something horrific. Maybe in those situations, medication might be a good thing, but overall, long term, no, I don't think so. Not in my opinion.
When we were young, I don't know, we were probably in our late 20s or mid 20s for you, late 20s for me. Both of us started experimenting with stress inoculation, exposure therapy, whatever, and we started to make a joke about it. It wasn't a joke, but we started talking about the things that we found worked. And so remember we talked about Adventure Camp 2000 was the joke.
Yep.
This is long enough ago. The name of the camp was kind of comical. It was like meant that we knew what we were talking about, but we were like, we'll make a place where people can come and they can induce, or we can induce stressful experiences to help inoculate them to stress, and then they will grow through that. So you started doing all kinds of shit to create a stress response, which you found really just made you relaxed.
It did, yeah.
Like, talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, like I was saying in my my video, and again, not to keep going back to that.
You can, because then people can go watch it too.
Yeah, and we talked a lot about it. I got to a point where I was dealing with a lot of these problems with medications, and I wanted to figure out a way of handling these problems naturally with nothing. And as Mick said in the beginning of the podcast, I was in the military, and my job in the military was highly stressful. In my early younger days, I was able to manage all of that stress without ever having any type of anxiety and panic, which I later came to realize those high stress situations and high stress jobs are what actually calmed me down. And so I got into tower climbing and, other types of activities that put me into a hyper-present state. I would go up, say, on a tower one day for work, 1,000 feet in the air, working up there for 8 hours in the day. And when I would come down from that experience, there's no way I could have a panic attack or anxiety because of what I just lived through. And it would just build strength and confidence in me every day, exposing myself to activities that put me in the present, more or less.
Which is the complete opposite of allowing your brain to go down some rabbit hole of, why am I like this, or what is happening, or this person hurt me when I was 5, or she left me, or how am I going to pay that bill, or blah, 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 blah. How's court going to go next week? And that neighbor's going to frickin' you can't do that if you are in the present, which could be woodworking or gardening or baking
anything,
or yoga.
Yeah, like, you talked, I've got a little bit of background with parachuting and paragliding and other types of activities like that. And I'm not recommending any of the activities that I do specifically for somebody to manage their stress or panic, but the benefit that I get from those activities is, like Mickey just said, putting you into the moment where you're not thinking about all of these other, not that these thoughts are unnecessary. You have responsibility in life, but I think a person that's predisposed to panic and heavy anxiety has a way of letting their thoughts just completely run wild.
Yeah, it's just like a flywheel running.
It just
out of
goes
control.
insane.
Yeah,
and putting myself, so like I was saying, like flying a paraglider, for instance, the moment that my feet leave the ground, I'm not thinking of anything but what's right in front of me. And that right there is, I think, the best mentality in life to strive for, is focus on what's important and focus on what's right in front of you, because the other things aren't going to, they're not going to help you.
Do you think it's harder to do that now than like 20, 50 years ago, or easier?
What do you mean by that?
To focus on like what's I feel we have way more distractions.
Yeah, I feel like probably before would have been a lot easier, more of a primal, especially 100 years ago, where
Right, I got to go milk the cows.
exactly you're not thinking about a million different things that mean nothing. I mean, like social media, you're going through there all day. I mean, on my way here, it was pretty disturbing. I pulled up to a stoplight, and I looked over to my left, and
Everybody.
all four of the vehicles in the turn lane, all four of them, and I looked at each person in their car was looking down at their phone, not paying attention to anything. And you think about all the information going into their head that's completely useless probably at
Which
that
has
point.
nothing to do with driving, right?
And some of that information might be the news that, or it could be anything, but just useless information that might later come out as anxiety and panic and that kind of thing.
I was at an event with Brian McKenzie. Sharon and I went to Texas 2 years ago. And at that event, there was a guy there that he's like one of the first CrossFit gym owner, like big name in CrossFit. And he had no social media. Their gym has no social media. He requests that the members have no social media. Of course, he can't make them. And he was literally living what we're talking about. Like, hey, I can't tell people, like right now, you're watching this on social media. YouTube is social media. Mm-hmm. So like, we're talking about the negative effects but then like we're using it. So it's like beer. Like beer's okay if you have 1 or 2 or 3. Beer's not okay if you sit down and drink a case of it and piss in your frickin', living room floor because you're that wasted and vomit. So like some people I think treat it like, I'm guilty of it. Like our phones have these like whatever little things that tell you use this much screen time this week. It's nuts. Mm-hmm. Like you're on the phone, like 1/3 of the week, people just stare at the shit. Mm-hmm. It's the thing I always think about. If you're doing that, what are you not doing? You're not freaking exercising. You're not cleaning your closet. You're probably procrastinating all kinds of shit you're supposed to do, which then makes you worry even more.
Sure.
So then what do? I'll go on the phone or do something else. So now I don't think about all the shit I didn't do that I was supposed to do.
Which later surfaces as anxiety.
Right.
And panic, things you don't manage and deal with. Mm-hmm. And, that's one of the problems with that. But
have you ever been in a situation where you had a panic attack, especially like in your younger years, and people saw it and were like, what is going on with you?
Never.
No.
And that's crazy. That's crazy you say that, because for so many years,
sorry, Drew,
I've had these false premonitions of going in for a haircut, and in the middle of the haircut, running out of the seat with my hair half cut and saying, sorry, I can't explain this, but I'm having a panic attack. I'll be back. Or, you mentioned court, going into court and having to run out of court because you're panicking. Or, you're in a meeting, like I had just said, I'm in a meeting and I'm nervous and my heart's pounding. I got to run. But the reality is I've never run in one of those situations to where I don't think anybody ever saw me suffering through that. Mm-hmm. I think I kind of have silently suffered and just been, covered it up very, very, very well. So
me too, for the most part. Unless I told somebody like, hey, can I talk to you right now?
Right. And then you start talking about it and it starts causing more anxious thoughts and
or sometimes for me, talking about it made it more something tangible. It's like it's a thing. It's not me, it's a thing, and I could manage it. Yeah. For me, understanding the physiological stuff happening, like, okay, our friend Rob Wilson describes, like, we all have a bucket and we fill the bucket up with stuff, whatever life is, shit from when you're a kid, work, stress, traffic on the road, bills, and the bucket gets so full that either you explode and break shit, or you get drunk, or pop pills, or a smart person like opens a valve on the bucket and drains some water out, or ladles some out, whatever analogy you want to use. But some people have no mechanism, and it is panic or anxiety or rage, or people close off. And so, like, understanding that, like one thing is like, oh, okay, like I see that, like I'm dumping too much on myself, but then like how do I offload it? Just understanding that dynamic for me, and then the physiological thing, like I feel this, okay, let me stop and think about what the hell have I been doing the last 2 weeks or 2 days, or oh, I drank 8 cups of coffee and I just drove 16 hours straight. That's
And a lot of that has pretty serious effects.
But just knowing that takes the psychological part of it
Exactly.
away.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, how about I drink some tea for a while?
And for me, is a lot of the time is exercising regularly and you know, cold exposure. It's another big thing I've found recently that helps me get back into that hyper present state where, you know, you might have a million thoughts swirling around in your head, but if you jump into a bath of ice, instantly all you're thinking about is your breath. That's it. Nothing else.
And this is cold, this is cold, this is cold. We got the 39-degree bath at the gym. I want to like it.
It's a beautiful thing.
I don't like it. I do it, but I don't like it.
That's what I think is the best part about it, is doing it because you don't like it.
Yeah. Most people just do the things that they like.
Put yourself into an uncomfortable state and see what happens, and that is where I find the most benefit.
So the thing that I think I took away from the 2 videos you put out a lot was the discussion of being present, which is like the basis of many religions, the basis of a lot of spiritual stuff, as well as a lot of breathing, any breathing practice really. But then you start to apply that to flying, driving, taking a chick on a date, like any of those things. Like how do you choose to like apply your focus or attention? Talk about that a little bit.
I'm not quite understanding where
your concept of being present. You seem to arrive at that trying to fight through the anxiety, and that seemed to be like the main focus of how you helped yourself, was being present. Talk more about that. How about that? That's a better way to say it.
Yeah, so I just every day I'm trying to make that my way of life in general. I had a conversation with my son today about that specifically. You know, he's a skateboarder, a pretty high level competitive skateboarder, and he was telling me how, you know, he's afraid of a lot of things, and I asked him, what are you afraid of specifically? And is it afraid of falling? Is it afraid of, you know, not landing the trick? Like, what is it? And it's, to him, it was failing. And, you know, and I had that specific conversation with him about, you know, anything in the past that's happened is already gone, and, you know, the future, you're not guaranteed. So it's like those thoughts really just disappear. And when I told him that, I immediately could just see in his mind, he's like, all right, I'm afraid of nothing. For what? You know? And so yeah, I just
Imagine
really,
if we all as children learned that.
Yeah. I just think I think really it's a way of life, and it's not just something to get you through a panic attack or through an anxiety-ridden situation. It's a way of life to live your life every day. Like you said, it can apply to every situation. Taking a girl on a date to jumping out of an airplane, you know? Like I was saying in that video, I got to the point these panic attacks were so bad that I was getting these feelings of claustrophobia. And again, there might be some skydivers watching this video right now that might judge me for saying this, but I put myself into an airplane in that position, feeling that way because I wanted a way out, and I knew the way out was putting myself back into that present state.
You're saying other divers might say, "Hey, you shouldn't have done that because if you would have like snapped, you could put other people at risk."
Right,
Okay.
but I knew in my mind, doing that day was going to be something I was going to grow from, and that you know, a lot of the time I think people that allow fear to, and everybody has fear they deal with, but I think a lot of people that allow fear to control their decisions in life have bad lives. You know, it just doesn't end well. And it's like, I got to that point where it was like, I got to do something. And there's not much more extreme that I could think of is just forcing myself into a situation like that. And it calmed me. It put me into that present state of, this is what you have in front of you right now. This is all that matters. Relax, breathe, and you're going to be good. And that's that.
I think once you do that too, it's like a muscle. Then you realize, okay, I beat that. I didn't die, or whatever was going to happen that you're afraid of didn't happen. So then now you just like, you get stronger in that.
You get stronger.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then that changes your mindset.
Yeah. And for the sake of anybody else watching out there, I do want to say I did have prior experience as a skydiver before that particular situation.
You shouldn't like show up like, hey guys, and let me jump out of this airplane with you. I could, yeah.
So I wasn't in my mind endangering any skydiving drop zone or putting anybody's lives at risk.
It's probably important to say that.
So.
And that's the other thing, is that there are people, excuse me, that do extremely risky shit, unprotected sex with strangers, people that like, you know, they use sex as a tool, or drugs, right? Like we had, you talked about Clark before we started recording. Clark, who we had on here, who was brutalized as a kid, you got to the point where like there was not enough drugs that he could take to help him, and eventually it imploded on him. But people do like super risky shit too, trying to get that same result.
Oh, there is those type of people in those circles. I mean, I'm sure you've met plenty of them as well. I know I've come across many of them, and those are the ones typically I try to stay away from.
Somebody riding their motorcycle 200 miles an hour with no helmet. And,
it's
just weaving in and out of traffic, just pushing the envelope. I'm alive.
I actually do want to live, not kill myself.
Right. Which I think that's like kind of like the premise of all of this. Like, what's the goal? The goal is I want to be happy and live a good life and not be fearful or anxiety ridden or how's the last 40 years changed the way you are a dad?
40 years?
Well, I mean, you'll be 40 this year. So how's the 40 years of your life, or 30-something years? How is that? Hey, you're 40.
Yeah, almost.
39.
Yep.
39.7.
Getting pretty close.
Yeah, like what in your experience, how did that shape you being a dad versus, well, not versus anything, because you don't have any other experience, but, you know, like some people take the things in their life and they just, I'm going to just do the same things that I learned or were done to me or that I saw others do. Like,
I try to teach my son things that are going to help him through the hard times in life. And things that helped me through hard times in life are the same values that I want to pass on to him. And, you know, I don't want to continue cycles of negative stuff that might have happened to me when I was younger, or anything negative from my past. I mean, I just, like I said, I try to just be in the present and focus on everything that matters and not a bunch of the bullshit from the past.
Yeah, it's like a weird thing, like, because you like have to like understand what was in order to understand what is. But if you just live with what was, then you're living with what was and not what is, right? Like, it's like where's the point of where you draw the line and you're like, okay, this thing or things happened, but I'm not gonna stare at it and look at it and hold it and talk about it and caress it all the time.
Yeah, you've gotta process it. You've gotta work through it, but you have to let it go. You know, I think letting go is a hard part, but I think once you can let go is when you could really see some change. You know.
That's the part that I always had a hard time with. I think for me, a lot of times I put the shit like in a little box and like put a lock on it, and then just went and dug in there once in a while and like, don't open that, don't open that. And it versus, I mean, you can't erase history, but like I think maybe from an analogy, like letting it go is the better course of action, but how do you?
If that's even possible.
Right, how
I
do
know.
you?
Yeah, letting go or accepting it. Maybe accepting is a better way to put it.
That is probably a better way to do it.
But just don't let it control you, you know, because I went through a lot of years of my life with extreme levels of rage inside that ultimately I think a lot of that rage, it came out as the panic and anxiety
I
too.
never had any rage.
Yeah,
Do you think that sometimes the rage was the vent instead of a panic attack? The vent would be rage, and if you held the rage back, then it would come out as an anxiety panic attack?
I don't think so, because I've had a lot of very high intense type of situations in life with a lot of that rage coming out, just unwell mentally afterwards.
That you gave into it?
Yeah, I think that's even worse, like a feeling of guilt that you that you even let that get to you to that extent. You know, you couldn't stay calm, or you found yourself continually explaining yourself to people when you feel like you don't have to.
What do you mean?
Have to.
Like, because, like, explaining why you lost your temper?
Nah, well, maybe that, but I mean just explaining yourself in life.
Oh.
Like, just be who you are and that's it.
Which kind of comes full circle to the acceptance thing. Like, I'm accepting what was, but I accept who I am. Like, you can change yourself and think different, but it's still like, I don't need you to like me or him to like me.
But I think the body follows the mind so closely, and that, you know, if the mind's in an unhealthy place, the body's going to be unhealthy as well.
That, I think, is like the hardest part for people, though, because you got to go dig around in there and like face little monsters in dark corners, and then I don't like that, so instead let me just smoke this thing, drink this thing, watch this thing, this thing, and I don't have to go to that little corner.
I recently was going through some stuff, you know, a few months back. I don't know if you remember, I came up with an idea to just put a backpack on my back and see how many miles I could go in 2 days.
It was cold.
It was very, very cold, yeah. It was, I don't know, 10, 15 degrees out nights. I spent camping out there and stuff. And the purpose of all of that was to try to work through some stuff in my head. Because again, I mean, what are you going to do? You're just going to sit at home and drink beer, take a couple of shots? No.
How far did you go?
I made just under 60 miles in 2 days with about close to 50 pounds on my back, and camped out and everything. Yeah, it was cold and everything like that. But again, it's like I just broke my body down and broke myself down to the point of change. It's like some of the most life-changing experiences I've had in life have been when I've forced myself into those moments. Like I said, talking about getting on that plane or putting a backpack on my back and saying, this is how many miles you have to go, and just go, and that's it. And you go through all kinds of emotions in your head going through those experiences, and you come out of them, in my opinion, a better person every time.
Did you listen to music and stuff when you were walking?
Very little.
Yeah.
Yeah, just...
Not like listening to podcasts and crap like that?
Not really, no. I was just thinking a lot.
And
Did
you want to quit? And like, this is stupid. Why am I doing this?
I had a few of those thoughts, and I mean, it got really intense towards the end, you know. I mean, I really pushed myself. I had a very heavy pack. Not a lot of elevation gain, but it was cold. Towards the end, I got really dehydrated. I wasn't managing my calorie intake, and things started getting pretty weird towards the end. But again, I pushed through it. And a couple days later, after I recovered from that, you just have a level of strength after that you know, you can't get that by just sitting around and doing nothing. And whatever it is that you get up and you do something. It doesn't have to be walking 50 miles, and it doesn't have to be going skydiving or flying a plane or paragliding. It's just something. Whatever it is, face something you're afraid of, because that strength can help you get through, you know, the days ahead. And life is hard, and bad stuff's going to happen, so be ready, in my opinion.
It's incremental, too. You don't, like, have to go win the Olympics. You can, like you said, just get up off the frickin' couch if you're a bum, and don't be a bum.
Yep. Do something.
Yeah.
Because I think, like, the worst anxiety and the worst panic I get is when I sit and I'm not making progress in life. I'm not moving forward. I'm just sitting doing nothing. Okay, that's going to just cause problems.
What's the old adage? If you're not growing, you're decaying.
Yep.
Pretty much.
Yep.
I mean, there's nothing in nature that just is static, even a rock or roads.
How many old people do you know that'll tell you, you know, I mean old, I mean, I had a conversation with somebody in their 90s. They said, if I lay down on the couch, I'm dead. That's the end of it. My friend's dad that owns a business, you know, he's in his mid-70s running it right now, says if I stop, I'll die. But it's like, that's life, in my opinion. You have to continue getting after it every day. And the moment you stop doing that is the moment you just start dying.
I think there's like an unhealthy point where some people chase, I don't know, winning, or, you know, you hear about people like they just can't relax. And then so like they can't, excuse me, go to like an unhealthy place, which I don't believe is what you're saying. Like there's people that go run like crazy 200-mile races in the desert until they're frickin' shitting blood, and like they just like, and I'm not saying that that's unhealthy for that individual, but like some people like just take it to an extreme where it's, but that's a different kind of person.
No, I think that's, I think there's some merit to that, but I also think that a majority of society aren't pushing it to that level
at all. Yeah.
You know.
You just did some stuff with homeless people. What were you doing?
All right, so yeah, Mick, the new YouTube channel that I'm starting is going to be talking about people that have been through hard times in life. One of the more recent videos that I just released was a video with a very dear and close friend of mine that I served with in the military, my friend Ryan Krantz, who went through a very traumatizing experience in the military and lost both of his parents, his father to suicide, his mother recently.
I didn't know his mom passed.
Yeah, she recently passed away to, she had a hell of a battle with diabetes. She had, her eye removed, her leg taken off, all this, you know, still remained positive throughout the whole period all the way to the end. And if you watch that one video that I had put out with him, he talks about that in there. But yeah, so.
What was that night called in Solder
Black
City?
Sunday.
Black Sunday.
Black Sunday, Solder City. 2nd Battalion, 5th Cav Regiment took 60 wounded and 8 KIA in one night. And again, this direction I'm taking my YouTube channel with is, like I said, with people who have went through very hard times in life, mentally and physically, and came out on top in a positive way, and didn't give up and didn't quit. Because I think far too many people just give up and give in on life without even trying.
I wonder sometimes, like, if that stuff, like, is it in you? Is it a DNA thing? Like, is it a learned thing? Did some teacher in 3rd grade say one thing that sticks in your brain? You know, do you go to church and the Holy Spirit comes into you and gives it to you? Like, you know, how does it that 2 dudes, 5 dudes, 50 dudes in the same experience, like, especially so talking about like a traumatic experience, like you hear about guys in the same unit and one of them is living a great life and the other one smoked himself.
Yep.
You know, like, how, and of course their experiences are different, but like what makes one capable of soldiering on or moving on? And a
good memory I have is when I got out of the military, going through EMT school, was going to observe an autopsy at the coroner's office I think there was about 12 of us. And I'd previously seen some gnarly stuff in my time, and I remember walking in there to the room with 12 people and to go watch this.
You guys were all just kids, like 19, 20.
Yeah, early 20s.
Yeah.
And I remember walking in there and I think there was about 12 of us. And, you know, the coroner said, you know, this is going to be pretty serious, so just be prepared mentally for this. And they pulled the sheet off the person, and when they went to make that first Y incision, I remember multiple people in the room just walked right out.
Couldn't take it.
And they couldn't take it. And as the autopsy progressed, a couple more people fell out, and by the end of it, there was a few of us left in there.
Eating a donut and slurping on some coffee.
And like you said, you know, there's no telling, you know, and especially, you know, with soldiers in combat, you don't know how one soldier is going to react to the next. You have no idea until you put them in that scenario. You don't have any idea how somebody's going to react to skydiving.
Sure.
Until you're put into that high pressure situation. You don't know, and everybody's minds are totally different, which goes back to, like we said, man, this is, anything I've talked about so far is not medical advice on anything, because
I think too often, though, we like overcomplicate shit too. Like, go buy a bunch of self-help books and all this shit. It's like, what do you want? I don't want to be miserable. I want to be happy. Okay, that's cool. What are you thinking about all day? Like, let's like write that shit down. What are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you eating? Who are you hanging out with? What are you listening to? Where are you going? And like, I mean, how many people do we grow up around, adults, I don't want to insult anybody, that every Sunday like had the same prayers, and then they all week long went and lived the same went and lived the same way.
Right.
Like, what'd you actually change? You just like come into this building or place imagining like some power's going to like magically change you, but you're still thinking the same shit, eating the same shit, hanging out around the same shit.
right.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it's not that hard.
Yeah, it's not, like you said. I think a lot of it is overcomplicated. It's pretty simple, you know.
That's why I like jujitsu. Like last night, somebody was choking me, and I felt like a filling about to bust out of my mouth, and I can stop this at any moment. But I'm like, okay, I can move my jaw, and I protected my jaw, and I'm laying there. I'm like, this sucks. I can't breathe. Well, can I not breathe? Or okay, there is still air coming in and out, so I can breathe.
Right.
It's just it's super uncomfortable, and this dude's chest hair's in my face, and like sweat's pouring in my mouth. Like, I know there was like a minute and a half on the clock the last time I looked, so it's got to be less than a minute now. Like, how long can I stay here till I hear the beep, and all of a sudden beep, you know, like, but instead it's, oh my God, this hurts, this sucks, I can't breathe, this, like, what's, get off me. And then, and sometimes you do that, you like freak out.
But it's those scenarios in a real life situation where you're going to revert back to, I can go through that, I can make it through that, no problem. You know, because you've done it, that confidence.
Like when your car breaks down and you got to do a 30-mile walk.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just get up and you just do it.
You've done a lot of cool stuff. Like, you lived out in Yosemite on a private off-grid resort managing that. Talk about that a little bit.
So yeah,
Was that 5-10 years ago?
No, not that long ago. I did that for about 4 years.
Time flies. I don't know when the hell it was.
Yeah, so
it was like at least 4 or 5 years ago, 6-7 years ago.
I think the first season was actually 2015, 2016.
There you go, man.
Yeah, damn.
Yeah, that's 8 years ago.
Yeah, so yeah, I've got a pretty extensive background in climbing, high angle rescue, that type of stuff.
Which is why you kind of went out to Yosemite to begin with, because that's rock climbing mecca, right?
Yeah, and as we had talked about, I've got a background in tower climbing and teaching rescue and that as well. So I got connected with these people that have this off-grid property on the south end of Yosemite National Park at around 9,000 feet elevation with these A-frame cabins on the property. And when I initially came in to do this job, the guy that was there before me was doing the same job that I took on after he had passed away. He fell off the side of a waterfall right near where the property was.
Out there hiking?
Well, he was taking out a group of people, because again, this is 9,000 feet of elevation. This is wilderness. Like, you can't quickly get out of this area. Like, you know, if you need to be rescued, they're calling in a heli to come get you up there. It's out there. So yeah, he was taking a family to show him this waterfall. He got too close to the edge, slipped over the edge, and died. Unfortunately, he had the keys to the truck. They were stuck out there, this family, overnight. There's no cell service, so they had no way to call rescue. So you can imagine how that went. But long story short, yeah. So I ended up running this property for the first year. And we handled a lot of celebrities and high-profile athletes and stuff like that would come up there and stay. And I
Want
would
like a behind the scenes look at Yosemite.
yeah, and so I would take them to all the cool spots up there and take them off on different hikes. And again, like I said, this is out there. It's wilderness. Your phone doesn't work. Like, you know, the kind of place you want to have a GPS. Like, people go missing up there every year. It's out there. So yeah, I did that for about, I think, 4 or 5 seasons. And
It was all snowed in all winter.
it snowed in all winter. Yeah.
That's when you started doing a lot of wildlife photography too. You
Yep.
did some great photos of like bears and
Yeah, I did a lot of
birds.
photography with that, and I would frequent Yosemite Valley a lot, doing a lot of rock climbing in the valley. I've done multiple ascents of El Capitan in Yosemite Valley as well, climbing all over the Sierras and in high country up there. So, and yeah, doing photography with that.
Yeah, you got some great photos. The one that you got the award from National Geographic was in Jackson Hole area.
That was close
the
to Jackson
Tetons?
Hole, yeah, Grand Teton National Park out on Jackson Lake.
That
Yeah.
Raven.
Yep. So yeah, that was, what was it, 2018 best photo of the year for National Geographic,
Yeah, that was cool.
something like that. Yeah.
It's a cool photo. You
Thanks.
do you still sell that print
Yeah.
on your website? Is that Tommy Shook Photography or something?
Yeah, you can reach out to me personally, and I have I do those kind of on a
One-off.
One-off, yeah.
Number it up with a
The
little.
last
mushroom
one,
print.
was for a fire department in Phoenix. So
That you took. Oh, that you sold them one. I
Yeah.
got you.
so
I got you.
yeah.
You started talking about tower rescue stuff when you started to do the climbing stuff, which I remember this better than anybody because you wanted access to towers so that you could jump off of them. And no better way to do that than working in the business, because then you weren't doing anything wrong. Which you started to find out real quick that a lot of people in that business didn't know how to even tie knots and shit, let alone proper techniques and procedures for being 3, 4, 5, 1,500 feet in the air.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
So yeah, so I've got, let's see, I don't know, I think it was around 12 years in that industry at this point. Currently, I'm a member of the Tower Climbers Union under the CWA, the Communication Workers of America. And I've got a lot of years training tower climbers, how to climb and how to do rescues.
You've done a bunch of videos and stuff on that, like professional training, the place out of Phoenix.
Phoenix, yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And so yeah, that's something I've been heavily involved with for a lot of years, and was an industry when I got into thought was full of professionals, and I came to realize that industry was not what I thought it was.
That's crazy, the stories.
So I am currently involved with unionizing that industry.
Because a lot of it's like super underpaid for super dangerous work.
Oh yeah.
And super undertrained.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, I worked doing night cutover. So when they do modernization projects on towers, where they transition from say 4G to 5G, all the equipment more or less has to come down off of that tower. And when, as a tower climbing crew, you're called in and you have a window of time, say midnight to 6 in the morning,
When
to do
there's
this work.
Little traffic.
Yep, the least amount of load on the tower. So our crew comes in, say we're there in the middle of the day getting everything ready to go, rigging all our ropes, getting everything set. We show up at midnight, and it might be the middle of winter, and it might be 10 below zero. And that tower might be 500 feet tall. You're going to have 6 to 8 hours up there. And
you can't just like get down and warm your hands.
full exposure to the wind. Oh yeah, it's
How
full
long does it
on.
take to climb up 500 feet?
500 feet I could climb in about, I don't know, me personally, probably about like 5 minutes, 6 minutes.
How about down?
Yeah, it depends. I mean, again, it depends on how much stuff you have on. I mean, tower climbing with a harness and all your gear on, it's very heavy. If you're climbing with a rope up, I mean, you can imagine a 5/8 rope climbing 500 feet.
Dang, that's heavy.
That's heavy. So, and again, not to go into too many details, there's ways of doing that where you're not carrying 500 feet of 5/8 thick rope, but you might have a guy at 250 feet taking off some of that weight or whatever. But again, it's a hardcore, full-on type of line of work.
But a lot of the guys out there doing it are just like construction-y guys that are not scared of heights.
Yes.
And they don't know the TTPs for rope work, and then you get guys trapped up there.
Yep. So what a lot of my problem was I'd be up on a tower by myself, and I would just start getting angry, knowing that if I get hurt up here, those guys down on the ground can't come up here and rescue me. And
They don't have the know-how or the skills.
they don't have the skill set, or our equipment's not up to speed. And this was early on, the companies I worked for early on. Later, I worked for very reputable businesses that had really good equipment, very good safety records, that kind of stuff. But this was early on. But there's plenty of those companies still out there. And also, I don't think a majority of the public understands that there's only about 10,000 tower climbers in the entire United States that supports an infrastructure of about 1 million towers supporting 330 million people.
It's crazy.
It's mind-blowing. And the amount of power that we could actually have to get better wages and, make it a safer industry if we unionize, and that's why I'm involved in that now.
Is there big companies pushing back against that?
There's a few of them, yeah. And there's a few independent organizations, but we're gonna work through all that.
Why is the pay so low? I mean, you go make way more money being a carpenter or something. Like, why does the pay seem to be so low?
It depends. I mean, I don't want to say it's so low, I mean,
I just mean like it's not. You'd think like, oh man, you must get paid hundreds of dollars to do that.
Yeah, I know. I saw a video recently. Somebody posted of a guy 1,800 feet up replacing a light. Somebody said he gets paid $20,000 to do this, and I look at all the comments and everybody's believing this, and it's like, no, he probably made about $100.
Yeah, he made $20 an hour. Right.
But again, there's climbers out there making in the $40 an hour range, but still, it's not worth it for what we're doing and what we're supporting.
It's strange because like diving, which is the opposite, right? Going down, and I'm not a diver, but I know a couple guys that are commercial divers. Like, actually, one of them I just talked to got out of that field because the same thing. Like man, I was 600 feet underwater, like with a high pressure well that could have like cut me in half, blah, 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 like doing all this crazy shit. And at the end of the day, like all of the stuff that goes around it, like for the time he's down there, it's good money. But then like, that's the only time you're getting paid, like when you're down underwater. And then he's like, all the stuff around it just didn't work. It was not for him generally worth it. And you'd like think like, man, if somebody didn't go do that, like there'd be no gas in Louisiana or whatever. Yeah.
And the amount of time these climbers spend on the road, 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, you guys used to, when Joey was working with you guys too, you guys would be driving our other brother, younger than Tom. You guys would be gone for Montana, Wyoming.
Oh, all over
Minnesota.
the country, yeah. So it's an effort that I'm willing to invest my time into to make a safer industry for the guys coming up, because we're never going to go away. I mean, we're always going to need tower climbers. And if you think for 1 second your phone that you're on is
probably watching this or listening.
Yeah, the phone that you're on and that you're using your data on is most likely connecting to a tower. And if you put into perspective that there's only 10,000 guys managing the entire infrastructure in the United States that keeps your phone working, that's pretty crazy. It's a small industry, and how many guys die every year doing that line of work?
How many is it?
Every year is different, but man, there's been some really bad years where it's bad.
Is there commonality to the accidents? Is it like bad gear, weather, lack of training, or is it just all over?
It's all over the place. Yeah, I mean, one of the most recent ones we had was an equipment malfunction on a fiber optic hybrid line. They were hoisting up a tower. The hoisting grip that hooked off to the tower broke. So that was some stainless steel wire that broke. So it's like, and that cable came down and literally severed this climber in half.
Damn.
That kind of is a situation that's just, who knew? But then you have other situations where a guy fell off a tower because he just wasn't connected to it. So
that's a big one.
So again,
easy fix.
Yeah. So again, I mean, not to turn this whole discussion into tower climbing, but
No, but you
It's,
went down that job route because of why we initially started talking.
Right.
Yeah.
right. And that line of work gave me, on a daily basis, a level of confidence to push through daily life, because it was something I did that was hard every day. And when I stop doing hard things is when I start to become weak.
So everybody that watches my stuff has seen me playing around on the slack line. You are the first one that showed me what one of those things is. Talk about that thing a little bit.
Slackline?
Yeah, like, like where'd it come from? Why do people, like, what's the hell's the point of that? Just some stupid hippie shit?
Yeah, I got into that from rock climbing. Some rock climbing buddies of mine got me into it, and that's funny. Slacklining really goes along with everything we've been talking about putting yourself in the moment, in the present. And I've done some high lines, some slack lines high above the ground and stuff like that. But slacklining is one of those things that the moment you're standing on that line, it's like
Can't think about anything else.
Yeah, because think about it. The moment you start to think about anything else, you fall off.
Right. Right.
So it's.
I remember the day you set one up in Mom and Dad's front yard, and we spent, I don't know, 6 hours, like, just working on walking across it, and then the next day, and then the next day, and then the next day. It was years and years ago, and now I can't do like tricks and stuff. I can play around on it a little bit, but I don't do it for the trick stuff. But you're right. Once you kind of enter into that like moment of balance for the minute or 10 seconds or however long you're on the thing, you can't really allow your brain to wander.
Right, let alone the core strengthening. Your whole body is engaged. It's great exercise too.
Although, like, the brain wander, in some sense, you have to kind of let it wander, like letting go. Like, you can't be stiff, so you kind of have to let yourself relax.
Just let go. Just be at peace. And the moment, those are those moments where you can just really flow on a slack line, is when you're just going, total hippie shit, but those are the moments you can just totally get into it.
You remember that time that we were at that campground with all of our uncles and other brothers, and there was
and you got us thrown out?
I got us thrown out. Yeah. Well, I don't know if I got us thrown out. We got us thrown out.
Whatever.
Yeah, we got thrown out of a campground. But remember, there was that group of like stoner yoga slackline people.
Oh yeah, that was
we go for a walk, and all of a sudden we come out, and there's like a field of like 100 stoner yoga hippie slackline people, and we're all liquored up, and was just like, what is
talking
this?
So much.
Yeah, like chicks balancing on top of chicks on top of dudes on top of slack lines.
That was hilarious.
Yeah, it was funny. Yeah. It was funny. I missed that day. And yes, I got us booted. The guy wouldn't let you burn anything. I mean, you can't. You're not allowed to cut down trees at the.
He was kind of a. Yeah.
I didn't cut anything down. No. We were picking up some dead branches, and you're not allowed to do that. And he caught me pissing in the woods.
Yeah, he didn't
twice.
Like that either. Yep. We had a fun time rock climbing, though.
We did. That guy was a jag-off.
Yep.
He was a jag-off.
Yep.
Parting words. How do people, from your experience, deal with, or what are some things they can approach to deal with, work through, grow with anxiety and stress? And we're not talking about stress like life is hard. We're talking about when it becomes unmanageable and turns into panic attacks.
Jump into an ice bath.
Just like fill your bathtub up, go get 100 pounds of ice.
Yep. And if that doesn't work, do something to put you into the present moment, because I'm not going to use the word guarantee, but I can say by experience.
80% of the time it works, 100% of the time.
No, I can say by experience a lot of probably what you're feeling and what you're going through is based on what you're thinking. And it probably doesn't have much to do with what your body's doing.
Do you use self-talk ever? Like auto-suggestion, or do you program yourself? Do you, Tommy, you're good enough and you've got great hair and people like you?
I do a lot of meditation.
Okay.
Sitting in silence with my own thoughts.
Clothes
kind of
on
thing.
or off?
Clothes off usually.
Okay.
Yeah. But no, I mean, just putting yourself into the hyper present moment is, from my experience, the best advice I could tell anybody trying to work through, stress in life that everybody goes through, because we all go through it. We all have fear. We all have anxiety. Maybe not everybody has panic like I might, or like maybe you've experienced, or anybody, but we all have hard days, and I think that the thoughts that you keep in your mind is something very powerful that can dictate the way your body feels, and the way you feel as a person.
Something you and I talked about many times that I think we both arrived at a similar conclusion is, I'm going to die anyway. Mm-hmm. Like, all this shit, like, if everything's perfect or every day's horrible, I'm going to die anyway. Mm-hmm. So, like, why don't I choose something different? Because I'm going to die anyway.
When you asked me earlier about one thing, things that I pass off to my son, we had another conversation today about, the one following we had about fear and stuff like that was, and I was telling him, like, you only get so many opportunities in life, and to not take those opportunities as they come, you might never know if you're going to get it again. And life can go by pretty quick and can be gone in just the blink of an eye. You could be just dust.
This year you turned the same age that our grandfather died at. Mm-hmm. And I'm 5 years older than that. Like, where
I was going with that was, you never know when you're going to die. You never know how much time we have. Mm-hmm. It's not worth even considering. Who cares? Mm-hmm. Just do the best you can and live in the moment. Focus on the good in life and let the bad pass you by.
But I don't want to die.
What if it's something better on the other side?
I know, I'm just playing. I mean,
I like to think that
it's an easy thought process where you just become so fearful of it that it's. And then there's some people that say, like, I'm not afraid of anything. I'm not afraid to die.
But isn't that a lot of what panic and anxiety is? The thought of the unknown.
Yeah.
It's I don't know what's going to happen, but something's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I'm going to freak out because I don't know.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of that has to do with, is trying to just control everything. Mm-hmm. Like,
let it go.
Let go of what you can't control and just be in the moment right now. I can't control what's going to happen to me when I leave here. Who knows?
Yeah.
But it's irrelevant,
That, I think, is probably the most simple and easy. I was just talking with a group of friends at the gym the other night, and we traveled together and spent a lot of time together, and I said, I'd really like to hang out and we all put our phones in a basket or some shit.
Oh, yeah.
Or,
I like that idea.
Like, is even like, even when, like, it's important, like, is it that important? Mm-hmm. Like somebody the other day was like, oh, I got to grab my phone. What if my kid calls? I mean, we remember when we were kids, like, mom couldn't go to the grocery store because we would call the store and be like, like, my mother literally go to this grocery store, and we one time learned that you could call the front desk and say, I need to talk to my mom. It's an emergency. Right. And they would page Mary Shook over the intercom at the grocery store, and she'd frickin' walk up. Yes, I heard I have a phone call. We'd be like, could you grab some yogurt or whatever? Right. Like that was how you get a hold of each other. But now we're so conditioned to the connectedness that it would be nice to maybe form some habits where, like, all right, we're going out to dinner with a group of guys. Leave your phone in the car, or put it on mute and don't look at it, or just be on the beach, or you go to a fireworks show. What do you see? Everybody filming the fireworks through their phone screen. Like, why don't you just watch the fireworks, man? Or watch the sunset. But instead, I'm watching the sunset on my amazing screen on my little phone. Like, just watch the sunset. It's weird.
It is.
It's a weird world. It's almost like when we were kids, all the time that we spent around campfires, like that's a pretty magical use of time. Just go burn some shit safely and watch the frickin' dancing flames and the crackles. And
yeah, I noticed when I would spend time for 3-4 months at a time up in the mountains in Yosemite, and coming home after that, so many things would just, like, everything was just hyper sensitive, like my senses to everything.
After being removed from all of the people and
it was
noise.
It was hard to just be around a lot of it, actually, just on a daily basis, because my mind was just in such a peaceful place, and then all of a sudden, everything comes in full force. But that's life, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think you can ever, unless you run away to the mountains and become a,
hermit up there.
Exactly.
Which is like not a healthy way of approaching life either. You just, like, we've got some family members that have done that, isolated themselves from everybody because it challenges them and they just don't like that, so they close off too.
Yeah.
How do people find you?
I've got Instagram and YouTube, Tommy Shook. And
TOMMYSCHUCH on Instagram.
Yep.
There's some numbers on YouTube.
Yeah, I think if you just look up Tommy Shook,
It'll pull up.
It'll pull up, and I don't have a whole lot on my YouTube right now, but I'm going to be uploading a lot of the videos in the near future, which I'm going to be having some pretty interesting people on there. So give me a subscribe on there as well.
I dig it. You guys, I appreciate that you watched. If there's a question or you've got some comment, throw it in the comment section. If you want to talk to him, you just figured out how to get a hold of him, do that. Anxiety's a and the way I look at it is, like we just said, you're going to die, so you might as well figure out how to not just get over it, but like enjoy living and not let it rule you. So hope you took something away from this that was valuable. Be well, don't be dickheads.
Visit our website, carrytrainer.com, for information about classes held throughout the U.S., Carry Trainer apparel, and upcoming projects. You can also email us at training@carrytrainer.com for information about setting up your own private course or speaking engagement. Training@carrytrainer.com or carrytrainer.com.
Hey man, what are you doing in the podcast room, Steve?
I'm writing a national anthem. It's going to be at folk festivals for Gunfighter Gun Oil.
Oh.
Let me tell you about Gunfighter Gun Hire. Made in the USA. Gunfighter Gun Oil, 100% synthetic. It's gonna last you, baby. Yeah. Gunfighter Gun Oil is the best I've ever seen. It's gonna make you get everything that you've ever seen. Oh, baby, I love me some Gunfighter Gun Oil. Yeah. Oh, Gunfighter Gun Oil. Gunfighter.
Gonna get my lighter out. I don't have it.
It wasn't even Bob Dylan. It was like a love story.